What's good, YouTube? It's your boy King Scourge here, and tonight I'm going to be giving you guys a long-awaited Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile. Um, but first, we have to get a couple of things sorted out. Um, First thing is first. To everyone who's been affected by the crush card virus, the coronavirus, your thoughts are in my prayers. Or my thoughts are in your prayers. I'm thinking about every one of you guys, especially the entire Yu-Gi-Oh community. For those who have been living under a rock for the last month and a half, the United States and pretty much the whole world has been shut down, which means there has been no Yu-Gi-Oh events. YCS got canceled, Charlotte got postponed and canceled, Eternity Quote got delayed, stuff like that. But I hope everyone's doing well, and if you're not, my thoughts and your prayers to everyone. Hopefully we'll get through this. And this is just scary. I think we will bounce back from this, but it's hitting everyone hard. I haven't been able to work the last month or whatever, and it's definitely different. I'm just fortunate enough to live with my grandmother and I'm in a really good spot right now. So I'm just fortunate enough, but for everyone who's everyone, especially with it being Easter and, there's people getting hit by storms and stuff, everyone's just in my prayers. There's just a lot of shit going on that I thought I would need to address. The other thing is, I noticed it's been a really long time since I've done a Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile. So, I do have a bunch of other deck profiles for you guys, but if you guys have been noticing, I've been uploading videos, but I haven't been doing commentary because my voice gets annoying sometimes. So I'm going to do it, and it seems like you guys have been liking the videos a lot more. So unless it's for something like this or a playthrough or let's play, I am just going to play through games and stay quiet. Just for viewers' sake, for you guys, and just to make sure things are going the way that they are. And I've been getting a lot more comments and stuff. So I like how that works out. But anyway, without further ado, let's get this deck profile update started. This is one of my favorite decks. We're doing counter fairies. So yeah, let's get started. So we're going to start with the monsters. We want to play, of course, 3 Ariadne. Pretty self-explanatory, low scale. When she's in the pendulum zone, you don't have to pay life points or discard to activate your counter traps. So you basically get to negate everything. So you need to play 3. If you're playing, you can play 2, but definitely I play 3, just like everyone else. You just need her, and her monster effect is when she's destroyed by battle card effect, you get to search a counter trap. So I mean, you reveal 3, and then your opponent picks one to add to your hand, and the other 2 go back in your deck. But you need to play 3 of her. Next, another 3 of course, 3 Artemis. Every time you draw a card, every time you activate a counter trap, you get to draw a card right after it resolves. It doesn't say you don't get to, per se. You actually are forced to draw a card. I've actually decked out because of that technicality. Back when I played counter fairies in high school, it was like I negated something with like Red Reboot or something, and my friend was playing Trick Stars, and I stopped his reincarnation, and he had triple Lycris and stuff. He had all his full combo. He had triple Lycris, so I was forced to draw a card. It will end up burning me for 3,000 points of damage. I had exactly 3,000 life points. So that one card can be your downfall, but you need to play 3 regardless. I mean, the chance of that being that specific, happening in that kind of scenario, is very unlikely. So you need to play 3. It's your main draw engine that you need to focus on. Next to for the 2 elves, I am playing 2 Minerva Sage of the Sky. Basically, her effect is every time you activate a counter trap, after it resolves, she gets a 500 point boost, attack point boost, like immediately. And if the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field, or the Sanctum of Parshat, you get to add 1 counter trap with a different name from your graveyard to your hand. So I was playing 3, and then I realized that you're not really going to have Sanctuary in the Sky on the field all the time. So I decided to bump her down to 1, and then I found 2 is the best ratio that I like playing, because you get to, when you see her, you can see her. You see her because, again, she searches your counter trap, so you definitely need to play. You can play 1 of her. You can even not play any, but I like playing 2 of her. She's actually really good. I mean, she can get really beefy, especially now that we have all the solemns at 3. So it's like every time you negate something, if you judgment something, and then you have a warning engrave, you can get back to warning, and then she'll just get 500 attack, and she can get strong really easily. She's your main beat stick. I bumped this guy out. You can bump this guy out down to 1, but I play 2 right now because, again, all of the solemns, which I'll explain why I run certain cards later on. I play 2 Meltiel. Pretty simple. Every time a counter trap's activated, after it resolves, you gain 1,000 life. You get 1,000 life points. And then if the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field, the Sanctum of Parshat is on the field, you get to basically blow up a card in the field. Non-targeting destruction. So yeah, again, since all the solemns are at 3, you're going to be paying a lot of life. So it's just kind of helpful. Even with Ariadne, it's still kind of helpful to get that additional pop or whatever. You're not really reliant on it, but it helps mid-game. You can bump him down to 1 if you want, but again, I'm playing 2 for right now and just testing it, see how it... Next, we only run 2 Honest. I know Honest is at 3, but drawing him because we also play Mumia Shield, and I feel like 3 was kind of a brick if you draw an Honest, and then 3 is kind of a brick. So I think 2 is... You'll notice throughout the deck that a lot of the fairies I play are 2 ofs, with the exception of Ariadne and Artemis. Those you have to play at 3. But I find a lot of these fairy cards to be just fine at 2 of, and it just works out for me. It's been working out for me, at least. Next, we only run... You don't even have to play her. Again, most people don't play her, but I play 1 Power Angel Valkyria. Basically, if you negate the activation of a spell trap or monster effect, you can add 1 Light Fairy from your deck to your hand. So basically you use her to search Ariadne if you need her, but you can only use her effect once per turn. I can see why most people don't really play her, but again, I'm just going to play her at 1. I play her at 1 just for testing purposes. When she comes up, but she's not going to come up very often. You'd be better off just taking her out, but again, I like playing her at 1 just to see what, because we do play Ties of the Brethren. This is a Ties build because the Demise build is kind of, Card of Demise got limited in the last ban list, so it sucks. Next, we were on 1 Barrier Statue of the Heavens. Pretty self-explanatory. You don't want to run this at 2 or 3. It's a brick if you run it at 2 or 3. It's a Ties target. So you summon Artemis, activate Ties, target the Artemis, summon this, and Honest, bounce to Honest back. This basically prevents any monster from being special summoned. except for light monsters. So, yeah. Pretty self-explanatory why you run that only at 1. We have a lot of different ties targets in this deck because they're all level 4, so whatever you need you can go into at the time, depending on what you need. Like if you have an Artemis on field, you can go into a Meltiel and another card if you have your full combo with the Sanctum or the Sanctuary on the field or whatever you may need. We only run 1 Zeratius because we run the field spell. We run 1 copy of the field spell, the Sanctuary in the Sky. You don't have to... I see a lot of people don't play Sanctuary in the Sky anymore because Sanctum of Parshat is better, but the Sanctuary in the Sky, it reduces the battle damage you take to 0 with your fairies, so that's why I play that at 1. Otherwise, this just searches it. And for the last of the monsters, we run one big boy, the Arknight Parshat, or basically another searcher for Sanctuary in the Sky. He's your boss monster, main deck boss monster. Don't run him more than a 1 of. He can be special summoned after you resolve a counter trap by banishing a total of 2 fairies from your hand, field, or graveyard. But he does piercing battle damage, and when he inflicts battle damage, he gets to either add a counter trap or Parshat card from your deck to your hand. So either you search a counter trap or you add a Sanctum of Parshat. So that's it for the monsters. Let's go on to the spells. The spells, I've been trying to keep it consistent. This deck is 45 cards, but I've been trying my best to keep it as consistent as possible. But we play 3 ties. Pretty self-explanatory. Pay 2,000 life, target 1 of your monsters, and then special summon 2 monsters with the same type and attribute from your deck. But they can't attack. You can't conduct your battle phase. You activate this effect, and after this card resolves, you cannot special summon any other monsters. So basically, you activate it. It's a play starter. You activate ties, and then you activate ties, and you go on your monster. You set 3, and then pass turn, and then start going off with your combos. Next, due to constraints, I only play 2 Sanctum of Parshat. I was playing this at 3, but again, due to some space issues, I decided to just bump this down to 2. You don't really need 3, but basically this protects your all your set spells and traps on both players' sides of the field from being targeted or destroyed by card effects. And it gives all your fairies a 300 attack and defense point boost. That does affect your opponent too, which you got to be careful for, but that doesn't really matter very often. And then once per turn, you can target a total of 3 fairies or counter traps in your grave, put them on top of your deck in any order. So yeah, you need this to kind of recycle your counter traps and stuff. And I'll tell you a quick story about this. This is actually really hilarious. Before this card came out, again, when I was doing another one of my friends, and I was going second, which counter fairies like to go first, because then you can start going off on your opponent. My friend sets 2 cards and passes. Okay. I opened up with a Bountiful Artemis, a Ties, and 4 other face downs. Okay, so I summon Artemis, I set 4. The moment I set my 4 traps, he freaking double twin twishes me and blows up my back row. And I'm just like, no, I can't. And then a couple weeks later, this card came out. Counter fairies need this card because, again, back row is important because they negate everything, and traps are slow, but these are counter traps, so your opponent can't respond to them most likely unless you have a counter trap themselves. So You can bump this up to 3 if you want. Then I would suggest taking out the Zeratius due to the other card that we run in the deck, in the extra deck, which I'll show you in a momentarily. If you want to play 3 Sanctum, but I think 2 is good. Double Duality helps you dig deeper in your deck. Now, for you budget players out there, I run Double Desires. Yeah, you got to banish 10. It's still a +1 though. You're running 17 counter traps and you're running like 17 monsters, so it's not really that. Likelihood of you banishing everything that you need is very slim. I've had it happen, and when it does, it sucks. But if you have Pot of Extravagance, these should be Pot of Extravagances. But again, I don't have $200 and something to spend on extravagances at the moment. So otherwise, yeah, I would be playing 3 Extravagance, but Desires works for right now. Next, I play 2 Mumia Shield. Basically, this card is... Basically, the equipped monster can't be destroyed by battle. I mean, it can, but the reason why I say that is because what Mumia Shield's effect states is if the equipped monster battles an opponent's monster, its attack and defense become equal to the current monster's attack, the battling monster's attack and defense plus 100 during damage calculation. So if you're basically if you bet, let's say it's equipped to, let's say you have it equipped to an Artemis or whatever, and you use your Artemis to attack into a monster that has 5,000 attack points. Well, Artemis's attack points will then be 5,100, and then the monster would be destroyed, and then the opposing monster would be destroyed. So basically, your opponent's always going to take 100 points of damage. There is a downside though. If it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you have to pay 500 life but you could put it on top or bottom of your deck. That's the one downside about that, but other than that, it's a pretty handy equip card to protect your Artemis from being destroyed. Another thing is, if I've also been trying out Yugioh Pro, actually double-edged sword is another good equip, a decent equip. Double-edged sword basically states the equipped monster gains 2,000 attack and defense, and then your opponent takes any battle damage you would from attacks involving the monster. And if you take 2,000 points or more battle damage, then you send it to the grave. But you can just make it beefy for your opponent, because then if they try to kill it, they'll be taking battle damage too. So you could play that too if you would like. But I personally am running 2 Mumia Shield. I'm thinking about getting 1 and 1, doing 1 double-edged sword and 1 Mumia Shield for future purposes. But for right now, this works out pretty good. And next we have 1 Upstart. Just helps you dig deeper in your deck. Your opponent gains 1,000 life. And then the 1 field spell, the Sanctuary in the Sky. Alright, so that's it for the spells. Now let's just go on to the counter traps. We play 3 strikes. It took 4 years to finally get. I never thought I would see the day that Solemn Strike is less than $1 now, or a couple bucks. It took me 4 years. I remember when these things were like $100 a piece. But yeah, 3 Solemn Strike. Some people say, I've been debating on Solemn Strikes. I know some people are going to be looking at me like, well, they're unlimited. It's like the best Solemn card there is. True, but you have a lot of life that you have to pay, and there have been times where it's like, I don't know. But now I see why again, you need to play 3 strikes because it works. With the way the deck is built, it really does work. You basically what Solemn Strike does, if you guys don't know what it does, is when a monster would be special summoned, or when a monster's parentheses S would be special summoned, or a monster effect is activated, pay 1500 life, negate the activation or summon, and if you do, destroy those cards. With Ariadne, remember all these counter traps are free, so yeah, you need. I play 3 strikes. Pretty self-explanatory there. Another card you need to play 3 of. 3 Judgement. Basically, this negates everything except for monster effects by paying half your life. When your opponent when your opponent normal summons, flips, special summons, activates a spell or activates a trap, pay half your life and negate the activation to destroy that card. Again, with Ariadne, it's all free. So you get a free Judgment and be like, you could set 3 Judgment and activate Ariadne and be like, okay, your turn. And it negates normal summons too. So next, I only play 2 warning. I know warning's at 3, but again, there have been times where I've been debating on playing 3 warning, 3 of each. Basically, when a monster would be summoned, or when a spell or trap or monster effect that includes the special summoned monster is activated, pay 2,000 life, and if you do, negate the activation or summon. If you do, destroy those cards. That's a lot of life if you don't open up with Ariadne to pay. If you have 1 strike, 1 warning, and 1 judgment, if you're at full life, alright? Let's just say you have 1 strike, 1 warning, 1 judgment, and you don't have Ariadne. Okay. Your opponent summons a monster. You decide to activate warning. That's 2,000 life right there. Okay, so then you're down to 6,000. Activate Judgment to stop something else. That's 3,000. And then your opponent, you'll be down to 1,500 life in no time. So the Solemns do drain your life, but this is why a Solemn Strike is so good, is because you only have to pay 1,500 compared to, and Judgment's better because Judgment will always be live because you can pay half your life. You can always pay half your life. That card will always be live. But playing 3 warning and then being like, there have been times where I've had a warning face down and I haven't been able to activate it because I don't have enough life to pay, you know? So then you kind of have to wait for Ariadne. So I think 2 warnings okay. If you want to play 3, you can feel free to swap out a couple of these cards, but I only play 2 warning. Next, we play 2 drastic Dropoff. Your opponent doesn't get to draw a card, or if they were add a card from their deck to their hand, including during the draw phase, you can make them discard a card that they added. So if they draw 2, you can make them discard 1. So yeah, just go set, and it's a free negation. There's no cost to it, so it's like so you can trigger off all your other monster effects that you have on field. Next, because we have a lot of counter traps that pay well, discarding and paying life, I play 2 bribe. Simple as it. When a spell or trap's activated, negate that activation, destroy that card, and then your opponent draws a card. Yeah, your opponent gets. What's really dumb is, okay, so this has come up before, but if you have a bribe and you have a drop off face down, what you can do is, so your opponent activates Raigeki or something, you can be like, oh, I'm going to bribe that, and then as soon as they draw a card, you can chain drop off so they don't get to draw the card. So you can kind of mitigate the card that you're giving them. You can kind of mitigate that, which is really kind of dumb. And again, we want to try to keep an even balance of cards that require you to pay life and cards that require you to discard, because remember, Ariadne is there in case we need it. We don't want to rely too much on her, you know what I'm saying? Next, we play 2 Ultimate Providence. When a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, discard 1 card from your hand that is the same type. So, for instance, if your opponent activates Solemn Judgement and you have a Providence and you have a trap card in your hand, you can discard the trap, negate, destroy that card. With Ariadne, it's a free negate. Again, you don't have to discard, but still, you just want to be able to kind of focus on resolving your counter traps and stuff. Next, for the one-ofs, we only run 1 Divine Punishment. I used to run this at 2, but now that we had to limit the amount of Sanctuary in the Sky cards that we have, this had to get bumped down to 1. Basically, it's like it's like Ultimate Providence, except you don't have to discard, but it negates anything as long as the Sanctuary in the Sky or Sanctum of Parshat on the field. When a spell, trap, monster effect is activated while you control Sanctuary in the Sky or Sanctum of Parshat, because it's treated as Sanctuary in the Sky, negate and destroy that card. Negate the activation and destroy that card. So, lastly, we only play 1 Rebirth of Parshat. This is essentially Divine Punishment with the cost. This one has a lot of cost to it, though. Some people play 2, but excuse me. Some people play 2, but I only play 1. You don't need to play 1. Basically, when a spell, trap, and monster effect's activated, you have to reveal 1 counter trap in your hand. You have to discard 1 card, and you have to pay 1,000 life. And it negates the effect, but it shuffles it back in the deck. So it's like, so your opponent gets to reuse it. But then, after it's resolved, you can special summon 1 Parshat monster from your deck or extra deck. You can either use this to bring out one of the 2 Parshat in your extra deck, or you can bring out your boss monster from your extra deck, or your main deck, without... So it's up to you what you want to bring out. If you want to play 2, then I would suggest reducing 1 of the counter traps, but the Ariadne can only mitigate 2 of those costs. The discarding and the paying the 1,000 life. But it's like... It seemed good at first, but I really think it's only a 1-of. Some people play 2 or 3. If you play 3, that's too bricky. 2 might work, but there aren't very many times that you're going to have a counter trap in hand to discard. There have been times where I've been playing 2 of this, and I'm sitting there. I set 4 or whatever, and it's like, okay, I don't have a counter trap in hand. I just set all my other counter traps. So it's kind of like, nah. But I play 1. If you're going to play this, play it at 1. I wouldn't recommend any more. At 2, if you can make it work at 2, you can make it work. But so that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's go on to the extra deck. The extra deck is pretty self-explanatory, just a crap ton of rank 4s. So, first one, Fairy Cheer Girl. 2 level 4 fairies. She just lets you draw an extra card. Once per turn, you can detach 1 Z material, draw a card. That's it. Next, we play 1. Sorry if I've been showing the cards upside down, but we play 1 Gagaga Samurai. Basically, what this guy does is once per turn, you can detach 1 Z material, then target 1 Gagaga monster you control. It can make a second attack during the battle phase. And when another monster you control is targeted for an attack, while it's in attack position, you can basically change this to face up defense and then change the attack target to it. So basically, he kind of redirects attacks, so you can be used to kind of just save your monsters if someone's trying to beat over it. Next, we play another Fairy Cheer Girl. Again, extra draw. Pretty self-explanatory. Casteau, he's out to certain cards, but once per turn you can either detach 2 XZ material and target one card your opponent controls and return it to the top of the deck, I believe it is. I can't remember his effect. Yep, target one of the face-up card on the field, shuffle in the deck. Or you can target one monster your opponent controls and change it to face-down defense by detaching 1 XZ material. So it's up to you how you want to use it, but he's an out to certain cards. Heartland Draco. Basically, while you control a face-up spell cards, your opponent can't target this card for attacks, and once per turn you could detach 1 XZ material. Heartland Draco can attack directly, so basically your opponent takes 2,000 to face. The other monster you control can't attack. Next, we play 1 Ragnar 0. Basically, once per turn, during either player's turn, you can detach 1 XZ material, target one monster on the one monster on the field whose attack is different than its original attack, destroy it if you do draw one card. And actually, the monster has to be in attack mode. But basically, if your opponent has a 3300 beat stick and it's boosted by, I don't know, Sanctum of Parshat or something, and it's a fairy, it gains 300 attack, you can just detach and be like, okay, destroy it, and then get it. Just another draw card, basically. Next, we run 1 Utopia, negate attacks, and we also run 1 Utopia the Lightning to go on top of Utopia. Utopia the Lightning, by the way, you can execute using the Utopia Monster you control. When it battles, your opponent can't activate cards effects to the end of the damage step, and once per turn, or actually during either player's turn, when this card battles, you can detach 2 XZ materials. It makes this card's attack becomes 5,000 during that damage calculation only. So basically, it kills everything. It basically kills everything unless you can't activate monster effects in the battle phase, but it kills everything. We don't run double or nothing or Utopia double because we don't need it. However, I do run. Some people like to play C39, because then you could overlay Utopia, overlay into S39 or whatever, or Utopia Prime, and then you overlay into Lightning. So the Lightning will have like 6 materials. So you could do it that way too. But we run 1 AntiTopi. Basically, what this card does is when any player monster declares an attack, you can basically detach 1 XZ material to change the monster to defense mode. He's like Utopia. And during either player's turn, while this card's in your graveyard, you can target 1 Utopia monster on the field. Special summon this card. If you do, attach that monster to this card as XZ material. So basically, he can steal any Utopia monster. So I mean, you could take your own Utopia if you want, but that's why I like to play him. Exciton Knight, basically field nuke, and once per chain, during your main phase, if your opponent controls more cards than you do, you can detach 1 XZ material, destroy all the cards on the field, and if you do, your opponent takes no damage for the rest of the turn. If you have Sanctum of Parshat on the field, you can basically go into Exciton Knight and blow up the entire field, while Sanctum of Parshat protects all your face downs from being destroyed. So it's just like, okay. So you can use that to protect your face downs and stuff. Next, you run 1 Tsukiyomi. Discard your hand, draw 2 cards once per turn by detaching a Z material. And for the last of the extra deck, we play one Avenging Knight Parshat. We play this because our counter trap can get this out. But basically, you can change a mount's battle position. He does piercing, like all the Parshats. And then we play Celestial Lord Parshat. Again, the counter trap can get this out. But he requires 2+ fairy monsters to summon. But basically, his effect is you can discard one card to add a Sanctuary in the Sky, or one card that specifically lists a Sanctuary in the Sky, and it's text from your deck to your hand. So Sanctuary in the Sky or Sanctum of Parshat. If the Sanctuary in the Sky is already on the field, you can add one fairy type monster from your deck to your hand instead. And then he has a third effect. His third effect is you can banish one fairy monster from your graveyard to special summon one fairy monster from your hand whose level is higher than the banished monsters. You can only use this effect of Celestial Lord Parshat once per turn. If another fairy type monster is sent to the graveyard. So again, the counter trap can get those two out. So you can link summon this if you want. It all depends on what you want. And if you wanted to play, if you even wanted to, you could add a Herald or Mirage Lights and replace like one of the XZs with Herald or Mirage Lights. So then you have a negate that you. So then if you summon Herald or Mirage Light, you summon another monster, activate ties, bring out a couple other fairies, bring out an Honest, bounce it Honest back to your hand. So then you can negate a spell or trap with Herald or Mirage Light effect, and you have like 3 fairies to protect you, and then you can just go into this next turn. Like there's just really stupid combos that you could do with this deck. So that is pretty much it for this deck, guys. I'd like to thank you guys all for listening to this, and if you guys would like more content, feel free to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and I will try to upload this whenever I can, which will be more often because I have nothing else to do really except for online classes. But I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile update, and with that, King Skurs is out. Later, guys.